We're going to get started. Thank you all for coming. I'm Cindy Rivera. I'm the department chair of the counseling office. And we have two representatives, but here tonight we have Amy and Jasmine from Sheffield and Northumbria. But they are going to represent the five and all of England in terms of understanding the system and the differences between in looking at British universities versus US. And then I know some seniors are in here actually working on those applications that there are some questions now that you're actually doing it that may arise. So we'll entertain questions as we go, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, any burning questions, feel free, and then we'll do
Otherwise
Q&A at the end.
Okay.
And then we'll have a bit of an informal session at the end where you can come and talk to us if there's other questions.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you. So yeah, just to sort of say again, we're just going to obviously say welcome and thank you so much for giving up your precious evening to come and hear us tonight. I hope you'll find it useful and interesting. We're going to cover why we think you should think about studying in England, sort of the differences and what we think the benefits are. And then Jasmine's going to do a portion on the UCAS applications, how it works, and we're happy to answer questions on that as we go or at the end. And then we've got a couple of slides just on each of our individual universities to tell you a bit more about those universities. We are part of a consortium of those 5 universities on the map there. And if you've got questions about those, we can try and answer them or put you directly in touch with our colleagues. But equally, we're just happy to answer questions more generally on study in England and how to apply and what the differences are. So do feel free to ask those as well. So about the 5 of us, we are 5 universities that travel together. Not always all 5, as you can see, it's just 2 of us tonight, but we're representing them all. And what we offer really is kind of a real variety of size and shape of university. So between the 5 of us, you've got campus universities, you've got urban universities, you've got bigger and smaller universities. And we pretty much cover all the subjects between us. So at Sheffield, we don't really do arts and design courses, but at Northumbria they do, and Northumbria they don't tend to do medicine, and at Sheffield we do. So we try, and by coming together, hopefully having something that fits everybody. So we come a couple of times a year, we attend lots of different events. We also organise a council of fly-in. So Cynthia came on the council of fly-in, so she can tell you about some of the universities and how she found them. And yeah, just to include there's a real increase in interest in studying in the UK from American students. We're seeing those numbers of applications really sort of going up and up, and we're going to tell you why we think that is. So, what you can expect if you go and study in England. Okay, first things first, it's a 3-year bachelor's course, okay? So it's quite different to the system here because you're basically going to just study your major for 3 years. There are no general ed requirements. So if you love engineering and maths and you never want to have to take another history class again, perfect for you. Vice versa, you love history, you love English, you never want to do another math class, Gren, it could be really good for you. So if you're passionate about what you want to study, you know what you want to major in, and you want to forget that year of general ed requirements, it's a really good option. So you get 3 years of just studying what you're passionate about. If you're really unsure and actually you want to try things for a year and figure it out, not such a great fit. And we would always advise that, that you need to be sure about the major you want to study in. There are some professional courses that you can study at undergraduate level in the UK. So things like law, medicine, dentistry, vet science, you can actually go straight into those from high school. So very, very different, particularly for medicine, to here. And we won't go into that in too much detail unless there are specific questions, because it's a very different system. It's a slightly different application process, and there are implications to if you want to come back and work here as well. But certainly things like law, you could go and do an undergraduate law in the UK in 3 years, and with not that much conversion, you can sit the bar in New York State. We think it's a nice, transparent, straightforward system in terms of entry requirements. So apart from things like medicine and Oxbridge, basically, if you meet our entry requirements, which we're very transparent about, so that might be that we want a couple of APs in certain subjects at certain grades and a GPA, or we want you to have taken an SAT subject test in this particular subject. We'll tell you exactly what we want. If you get those grades, you get your place. Okay, so you will have to write a bit of an essay that Jasmine will tell you about, and that's kind of to supplement your application. But basically, if you have the right grades in the right subjects that match the major you want to take, then you should get in. Okay, so it should be really easy to figure out which colleges you should be applying for because it's very transparent. There's no need for demonstrated interest. That is a term that doesn't exist in the UK. It doesn't matter if your parents studied with us. None of those things matter. It's just, are you academically qualified to come and study with us? So in that sense, it makes it a bit more easy to match yourself to a good college for you. It can work out quite a bit cheaper than studying here. So particularly if you're thinking of going out of state or to a private college in particular, it will be considerably cheaper. And we all offer different international scholarships. So they tend to be a proportion of the tuition fee. They're merit-based, but we encourage students to apply for those. And you can actually use your FAFSA loans to come and study in the UK as well. So our institutions are FAFSA accredited. So just as you can here, you can use your FAFSA loans to come and study in the UK. Big one for some of the students, you get your own bedroom. It's really, really unusual that anyone would share a bedroom in the UK. It's kind of been phased out. Our students wouldn't put up with it. And on top of that, a lot of our rooms, you even get your own bathroom. So what you tend to have is an apartment where you have a shared living space. So you're still going to hang out with your flatmates. You're still going to cook together and watch TV and socialise. But at the end of the day, you can kind of close your bedroom door and have your own space. So that's very popular with your students. And they find it really surprising when they come and they don't have to share. It feels like a really long way, the UK, but actually it's not that different to flying to the West Coast from here. So actually geographically, the US is huge and going to the UK is not much different than flying over to California from here. Because we are really careful to make sure that you have the right subjects at the right grades for the major you want to study, and we attract students who are kind of passionate about that major because they're declaring it right from the start, we have really high completion rates. It's really unusual for people to drop out. As well as just the academic side, we have lots of support services to help you. So, financial support, disability support, mental health services, lots and lots of things to look after you and make sure that you succeed. And so our completion rates are very high in the UK. Lastly, probably a biggie, particularly for parents who might be visiting, you get to spend some time in Europe. And Europe, it's really easy to travel around. We have lots of these budget airlines where you can fly much cheaper than a domestic flight here. You can fly to, a dozen different countries in Europe, go for a long weekend, explore. You can even get the train to Paris, Brussels. So it's really great opportunity. The vacation periods, our American students are generally off traveling around Europe and they've always seen more of Europe than we have. So a really good opportunity to travel. Thinking a bit further ahead, just to explain how university education works the whole way through. We have the 3-year bachelor's, as mentioned. That can end up being 4 years if you would like to do a work placement for a year, or perhaps go abroad to yet another country, whether that be within Europe or to Australia or Hong Kong or somewhere. So lots of our courses often offer those kinds of options with them. But if you're just doing a straightforward bachelor's, that will be 3 years of study. If you then wanted to do a master's is 1 year. So in 4 years, you can have your bachelor's and your master's in the time that it would take you to do your bachelor's here if things went well. If you then decide you want to stay and do a PhD, or you want to come later and do a PhD, most PhDs will be completed in 4 years maximum in the UK. So you can see that it's a more focused kind of study that's more in depth rather than broad, and we sort of make sure that you complete in time. Okay. It's not all about the study. There's lots of other things to think about and that are going to make sure that you have a great time. So we have orientation weeks or welcome weeks like here in the States. And they are just really fun weeks where there'll be parties, there'll be clubs and societies trying to get you to join them, there'll be tours, you'll be getting to know your flatmates. It's kind of a settling in week to really enjoy yourselves and sort of get to know everybody. You'll also sign up for your classes then, but another important difference is if there's a class you need to sit to complete your major, or your course as we call it in the UK, you will be able to take that class, and we will make sure, it will be timetabled and there won't ever be not room for you. So if there's a class you need to take, you will take it. It's never going to be an issue. You're never going to be in a line worrying about not getting on that class. Clubs and societies, really, really popular. There are hundreds and hundreds, all the kind of sports that you would want. So, we have lacrosse, American football, as we call it there, hockey, soccer, all the kind of things that you would expect. But also, if you're not sporty and you're looking for something else, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful niche societies. So, tea appreciation, obviously. We have medieval reenactment. And then my favourite is the Assassin's Guild, where you become a member of the Assassin's Guild and you get missions to go and assassinate other members. And you have to do it in the most creative way possible. So I have seen a student dressed as a knight on a hobby horse, galloping over campus to sort of go and fake assassinate someone in the Assassin's Guild. So it's a great fun way to make friends. So you'll make friends where you live, you'll make friends on your major, on your course, but it's another way to meet people that have a similar interest to you. And we have lots of careers and employability support. Excuse me. So we have career centres where you can book appointments and get one-to-one advice, preparation for interview or advice on your CV, preparation for assessment centres, things like that. But we also have big recruitment fairs on campus where employers will come and try to recruit our students to go and work with them. And they won't just be local companies, they will be multinational companies. So, Deloitte, Rolls-Royce, all these people are coming to recruit our students. And our career service don't just support people to get work in the UK, they support people to get work wherever they're looking for work in the world. As mentioned, lots of support services, so we really take your well-being seriously. So there's always support there. I would definitely say that the style of learning in the UK is more independent, so you are given more freedom and responsibility to go and learn the way that suits you. So there is kind of a slightly shift in the level of independence in the UK, but all the support you could ever need is there for you to go and access. You never need to worry. Lots of students like to work part-time whilst they study, partly to sort of supplement their income, but also to get some work experience and meet other people. And again, we have people that can help you find part-time work whilst you study. And that could be in shops, bars, cafes, restaurants, in our cities or on our campuses, or you could actually work for the university. We employ a lot of students to do different jobs for us as well. The actual amount of hours that you will spend in a classroom or a lab class or a seminar room will vary depending on the major that you choose. So for something like an engineering course where you have lots of lab classes and there's a lot of practical things that you need to be there to do, you might be in a classroom pretty much all week, 20 to 30 hours a week. For some of the other courses, it will be much less. So for English literature, your actual classroom hours might be much less, but you'll have a lot of reading to go away and do, and a lot of preparing for a seminar. So you might have a seminar where you have to argue a point of view on a particular book, and you'll be expected to spend so many hours preparing for that. So there's a lot of independent study on some of our degrees. We do run a semester system, so it's quite similar to most colleges here, it's just a bit later. So our first semester tends to start at the end of September and run through to Christmas. And then after the Christmas vacation, you usually have some exams. And then the next semester starts straight away, runs through until May, June time, and there's some exams. And in that, you get a 3-week Easter vacation as well. So there's quite a lot of holiday. And then you get 3 months in the summer to go and enjoy yourselves. One thing that sometimes surprises American students is that we score things a little bit differently. And this really surprises and worries students coming on study abroad sometimes, because they've been in a college here and they're used to getting 90% in all their classes. And then they come to the UK and in their first test they get 67 and they're absolutely distraught. But 67 is a really, really good score in our system. So 70% is what we call a first class degree. So I mean, if you get higher than 70%, great, but actually it doesn't really matter. If you get 70%, that's the highest you need to get this first class of degree. So that's something to bear in mind, not to be disheartened if your scores are lower than you are used to. It's just a difference in the way that we grade things. Okay, I'm going to pass on to Jasmine now. Thanks, Jasmine.
Thanks, Amy.
Take a photo.
Oh, this is super high for me. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about the UCAS application process, which is a centralised process for all UK universities. I could take questions at the end, but there are obviously some different terminology, so if there's something that you haven't quite grasp, please shout, and I will go back through that. So the UCAS application process is a centralised system, as I mentioned. So every single UK university is listed on UCAS. It's almost like the original Common App. So this is definitely the way that we encourage students to apply. You can also have options to apply on Common App and direct, but there's a lot less institutions doing that. And UCAS is quite a user-friendly process with everybody on it. So this is what we would definitely encourage. So looking at this timeline here, this is the timeline for seniors kind of working towards. Can I see what the split is, just out of interest? How many students in here are seniors? Oh, okay. So yeah, almost a third of you. So hopefully if you came in April as well, this might jog your memory a little bit. And yeah, as I said, we can talk to you separately at the end as well. So around about now, you're completely on track. So coming to sessions like this, where you can talk to us and we can talk to you a little bit more about your options, is fantastic. Unfortunately, not every UK university can come out to New Canaan, but we all have points of contact like ourselves that you can contact on the website. All of our majors are listed online. As Amy said, we're really transparent, so it will say what the major is, what you need to get a place, and what modules that's made up of. So it's really important to look at those courses closely, because history at Northumbria will be very different to history at Sheffield, so it's important that you know which institution and major is the right one for you. So looking at the websites, prospectuses is really useful. We all have open houses back in the UK if you have an opportunity to visit. That's fantastic. If you don't, lots of us have virtual open days, so you can look at our facilities on the website. And because you're coming from so far, you don't need to stick to those open days. We will host US students on campus. As long as you give us a week or so notice, we can give you a bespoke visit. So definitely something that we would encourage if you have the opportunity to. If not, that's absolutely fine. So come October time in your senior year, or almost around this time now, you'd be looking to start that UCAS application and fill in all the steps. It's really important to remember that there's 2 deadlines on the UCAS application process. There's an earlier deadline of the 15th of October, so that one's kind of coming up quite soon. That's for students that would like to apply to Oxford or Cambridge. You can't apply to both. They make you choose between the 2, and students looking to apply to dentistry, medicine or vet science. So these are classed as the most competitive degrees and universities in the UK. So it's a much earlier deadline to get things rolling. But every other major, every other university, so the majority of UK students would be working towards the second deadline there, which is the 15th of January. So 15th of January is our equal consideration deadline. So if you apply by that date, you'll be treated exactly the same as if you had applied by the 15th of October for those other majors and institutions. So you don't need to rush to get it in as soon as possible, but we work on rolling admission. So as soon as those applications start coming in from the 1st of September, you start to hear offers back from us. If you don't manage to get your application in by the 15th of January, all is not lost. Many of us will still take those applications in after that date, but you haven't got that equal consideration. So just sticking to the deadlines there is the best way to go. And I'm sure the counsellors would also like you to give plenty of notice so they have time to write your reference as well. So those are the 2 deadlines that you'd be looking at. As I said, once you've made those 5 choices, and I'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a moment, you'll start to receive various different offers and decisions back from the 5 choices that you've selected. There's a couple of different decisions you might get back: a conditional offer, which is very common, an unconditional, and unfortunately there may be a couple of rejections. But as Amy said, it's quite rare. Our rejection rate is much lower because we're so transparent about what we want, and you know kind of what you're on track to achieve. It's very rare that a student that hasn't done any APs has got a very low GPA would think, oh, I'm going to apply to Oxford. So that really brings that rejection rate down a lot lower, because you're applying to universities with the help of your counsellors and our support that will be well suited to you. So it's a much more user-friendly system, I would say. So the rejections don't tend to be as common. At this point, you might receive some emails asking you to interview. So interviews aren't very common in the UK. It usually is for those selective courses on the 15th of October, and there's a few other select major in institutions. But again, you can ask us that at this point. It's not going to creep up on you. It will say on the website now whether it's an interview course or not. Many of these can be done on Skype, apart from a couple like medicine where you must come to campus. But again, very uncommon. And I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about what a conditional and unconditional offer means. So at this point, around May time, you would be looking at a series of different offers, hopefully. You would then pick your first choice offer as your firm choice, and you're then allowed to put in a backup choice, which is your insurance choice, so a second choice offer. You would then decline any other offers that you were holding. And again, I'll go back into this in more detail. So around about August time, you'll be looking at confirming your place when you've met the conditions of your offers. So this sometimes sends alarm bells ringing, because our timeline is obviously much later than a US timeline. But hopefully, to fill you with some confidence, UK students are working towards the same timeline. Their A-levels, which is our local British curriculum, you don't get those results till mid-August. So UK students don't know where they're going to till a month before. So you're still ahead of them, if that makes you feel any better. So this isn't out of the ordinary for the UK system. This is just what we're used to. But hopefully, again, you kind of know where you're going because you know what the condition is, and you've chosen institutions that are suitable for you. And then late September, early October, you would start university. So that's just the timeline at a glance, and I'm going to go in now a little bit more detail about what's included in the application and what those offers mean, because I know the terminology is different to here. So what we're looking at in that UCAS application, so that opens from the 1st of September in senior year, and you can kind of log in and out and update it as much as you want until you click that final submission. So you can do it over a period of time. We're looking for those personal details. We're looking at any previous schools that the students attended, so just to get a good idea of what they've been doing, what the curriculum has been. To an extent, we don't look at class rankings. GPA isn't as big a factor as it is for a US institution. It's much more about those standardised tests in the UK. So we're looking at those personal details, and then you can choose up to 5 degree choices. So this is different, very different to the US. And there's no getting around the system. It must just be those 5. So it's a much more focused application than the US, where you could apply to 20, 30. I'm sure you're not encouraged to do that. So those 5 choices, they're across a range of institutions. So we usually encourage you to apply to one major at 5 different institutions. That way, you're being assessed by 5 different admissions teams, and you've got a good likelihood of having a really focused application that is going to help you generate offers. We don't encourage students pick a university, St Andrews, and say, right, I want to do that 5 times, because they can see all 5 applications coming in. It doesn't make you look particularly focused. And you also write a personal statement, which is like a college essay, which is meant to be about one major. So that's not what we would advise. So just the one major, 5 different places. But yeah, you can apply to the same university for more than one course if you wish to. You'd put in your previous test scores, so any test that you've taken in your junior year, anything that you've got, you should list everything on UCAS, and it's up to us what we make a decision on. So just put all of the information out there. And then predicted test scores. So this one, again, it's not very common to do that in the States as far as I'm aware. So your counsellor would put some predictions in, so what they think you will achieve. This is something that we support counsellors a lot with, about how to write references and how to pick those predictor scores, because it's important that they are on track. So we don't encourage students to ask for their predictor scores to be pushed up, because then they might not meet that offer and it will only come back negatively on them. So it's really important to get that as good as it can be. And then you write a personal statement, which I'll talk about on the next slide, which is about why you would choose that particular major. As I mentioned, you get one reference from your teacher or counsellor. It's just the one in the UK. So a lot of counsellors will talk to different teachers and weave together an essay that kind of talks about you as a student as a whole. So that's something that, and especially the schools around here have got some really experience with UK applications, so that's nothing to worry about at all. And some degrees may have additional requirements, but again, listed clearly. So it might be at Northumbria for fashion, you need a portfolio, or you might do theatre, you might need an audition tape. It'll be really obvious what those additional requirements are and how you can meet them as well. So just moving on, I mentioned the personal statement is a very short piece of writing. So if you've been writing college essays here, you might find it a little bit of a refreshing change. It's literally just 42 lines or 4,000 characters, so whichever you meet first. So literally just one side of paper to talk about your passion and interest for the chosen subject. So everything we talk about in the UK is about academics. So although there is an element of your personal skills in there, it is about why you've wanted to do that major, and that's why it's so important to pick that major as soon as you can, so that you can write a really tailored personal statement about why that's the right decision. And as Amy says, our completion rates are so high because we're selecting students that have got that passion for the subject as well as those academics. So we normally say 2/3 of your personal statement should be about the major, and about a third should be any extracurricular activities. And it's important when you're talking about extracurricular activities or volunteering or work experience, you link it back to why that will help you in the major. So say you've been on the American football team, how has that helped you? So have you got leadership skills, communication, team working? These are all kind of buzzwords we love to hear. It's not just enough to write that you've done that. It needs to be obvious why that will help you excel within the classroom. But we do care about the personal qualities as well. Anything you've done that would link back to that major is really beneficial. We also like to see any career exploration you might have done, or work experience. Work experience is important, but it's important for some majors more than others, like medicine, those professional subjects. So we don't expect students to have years and years of work experience, and a lot of the time we can advise you on what strong work experience for a major looks like. Career exploration is really important if you have that. So if you're doing a major because you want to, if you're doing engineering because you want to be an engineer or you want to work for a particular company, those kind of things we like to see that you've thought ahead there. And it's important, it is a personal statement, try to stand out. Although we are looking at academics, and if students have got the correct academics, they are normally offered a place, it may be that your personal statement is really important later in the stage. So if we have 2 students, we've got 1 place left on the programme, and one's just got a slightly stronger personal statement and they've got the same academics, it may be that kind of gets them that place. So there is some weighting behind it there. As I said, yes, 4,000 characters, so relatively short. And drafted over time as well. So I would just get some fresh eyes on that personal statement as you go through. Get your parents to read it, get your counsellor to read it. It needs to be a strong piece of work, so no spelling errors, just the obvious things as well, really important to us. We don't actually read your applications and your personal statements, so we're different in the UK. So we are kind of here to support you, we're recruiters, and then we have separate admissions officers back at campus. So the beauty of that is you can come and talk to me and Amy, you can ask us questions about the personal statement, and we're not noting down and making a decision on you at all. It's very different from the US. We have a separate team that will do that. We're here to just help you and inform you as best we can. And as I mentioned, that same personal statement goes to all 5 UCAS choices. So please don't name drop. If you said, I really want to go to Sheffield, and the Northumbria team picked it up, I'd be a little bit offended. So you just need to talk about that major, not the feel of the campus. We don't see where else you apply. You could apply for all 5 universities in the consortium, which would be great, but we wouldn't know that at all. So a little bit about those decisions. So hopefully that application is in by the January 15th deadline. We will get back to you by the 31st of March if you've applied by that date. So we are all kind of sign up to UCAS terms and conditions, so we will honour that. You will hear back from those offers. It might be sooner than that, depending on how we are kind of working through them. So successful students, I'm sure most of you will be successful. You'll receive either conditional or unconditional offers. Conditional are the most common kind of offer, so please don't be disheartened if you don't get unconditional offers. They're really rare to get in the UK. A conditional offer is where a university has said, we would love to have you, but there are some conditions to this. So it might be that we are waiting on an AP or an SAT or a GPA, and it'll be clearly stipulated in that offer what the university is waiting on. And most UK students would also receive a conditional offer. Unconditional offers, which means you're completely in, you don't need to do anything else, are more common for students that usually had a year out or like a gap year or a really high achieving. So they're not very common. A conditional offer is not a wait list. We are definitely contracted to give you that place as long as you meet the condition that we are looking for. So we're not waiting for higher academic students to come in. We want you to come, but we just need you to meet that 1 or 2 conditions. And as I said, it'd be really clear to what those conditions are. So at this point, hopefully you might be holding 5 offers if you're really lucky. If not, that's absolutely fine. But the offers that you have, you will then pick one firm insurance. So this is your number 1 school that you really want to go to. So firm choice means your first choice. So this is the one, obviously, your perfect dream school. And at this point, you can also put down an insurance choice, so a second choice. So a lot of students will put down the one that they want to go to and the offer that is a slightly lower entry requirement. So if something happens, they don't quite meet that AP or the GPA or whatever we were asking for, they still have a second choice institution to go to if they meet those requirements as well. So that's why I think the UCAS system is so good, because it gives you that option to have a backup plan in there as well. And at that point, you would decline any other offers you're holding. So it's this important decision to make sure that those 2 universities, especially at Firm 1, is the university that you really want to go to. Hopefully, not many of you would be unsuccessful, but if you are, it's not the end of the world. There are some alternatives. So there's foundation years. So this is like a year 0. So a university, you might apply for mechanical engineering, and they might say, you're not academically qualified for that first year, but if you do a foundation year with us in engineering, once you pass that, you can progress into year 1 of that course. So they tend to be quite a popular choice. Alternative courses, so sometimes less competitive. So you might apply for medicine, and someone might offer you biomedical sciences or biology. It will be really clear what this change of course is, and that will come through UCAS. And if that doesn't work out, there's also 2 other processes, one called extra and one called clearing, where every university that's left with any spaces, you then have a chance to apply through those. But not many students go down that route, so this is the route that most of you will be looking at with the conditional and unconditional offers. So what happens next? You've got your firm choice, that university that you really want to go to, and as I said, that is a firm decision there. You just need to wait for the extra qualifications, whatever they may be. At that point, you can apply for accommodation. So you can apply for accommodation even before you've gone unconditional. So you can pick a room. As Amy says, there's some good choices. You get your own bedroom, bathroom. So lots of us, it's a really easy process. Both of us here guarantee international accommodation. So you will get a room with us, and the majority of UK universities also have a similar process as well. As I mentioned, at that point, you would then go unconditional if you sent those exam results. So it might have been an AP4 that you're waiting for. You would send that to our admissions teams, and then we would make you unconditional. You definitely would be coming. So that's around June, July, August time, depending on what you were waiting for. Most international students would need a visa, so that's a process that would then kick in after that. As Amy said, we've got lots of support and wellbeing teams. We've got huge visa teams that will support students through that process. So we're very much used to doing that. It's quite straightforward, and we will guide you through that as we go. And then the exciting stuff happens. You'll get the welcome packs, orientation information. You'll find out when you need to be on campus. We all operate meet and greet, so we'll come to the airport and pick you up, and you'll be hopefully starting that UK university journey. So you'd book your flights, pack your suitcases, and get excited. So I appreciate there's a lot of information, especially around the application process, and some of the terminology is very different. So before we kind of give you a little rundown on how we're different and what the institutions are, have we got questions that you'd like to ask? This is good.
Wow.
But we're...
So I know you said that unconditional offers are rare, but for international students, they'd be more common considering they might have had some of that application beforehand. Yeah, like we've got APs under our belt now.
If there was an institution that just needed a certain amount of APs and they weren't waiting on the GPA, it may be that you go unconditional. I wouldn't say it was more common of international students in the UK. I'd say pretty even. As I said, it is a minority of students that receive an unconditional offer. We certainly didn't, and it's not a common thing at all. But yeah, if you've got everything that is needed at that point and there's nothing to wait on, then there's no reason why you wouldn't be unconditional. Yeah.
Which is trained in the medicine program, because it's not done in 3 years, obviously. It requires.
We talk about that at the end, if there is anyone interested in medicine, because it's, again, another little piece that
I'm happy
we
you to
go
come and
through.
chat to me at the end if you want, because Northern don't do medicine, so I can chat to you at the end. Is that okay? Thank you.
Yeah, and we've got some slides on that as well that we could potentially send you if you're interested. So we'll come back to that one. Yeah.
With a firm offer and conditional offer, if you meet the requirements, you're not obliged to take up your firm offer, are you? Like, it's not binding at point anyway.
It is binding to an extent. You would then need to, if you didn't want to go there, you would have to ask them to release you in order to go down the extra or the clearing route. So to an extent, it is an important decision. I would definitely recommend that is your school that you really want to go to. But obviously, if you don't want to go there, you can decline and withdraw later down the line.
And if you met both binding and both the firm and conditional requirements, could you say, actually, I want to go to my insurance line? Is it change your mind?
Yeah, you would contact the firm choice and you'd give them a ring, or you'd email in and you'd ask them to release you, and then you would go down to your insurance. But I'd always check with your insurance, especially with competitive courses, that they're still holding that place, because they might think, oh, they've gone there, and give that place out.
They know, schools know what your firm and your conditional, your insurance.
They don't when you originally apply, but once you put down firm insurance, then we know where your firm insurance are. So we see it after that.
Once you have, say you choose 5, you have to choose one firm first, one insurance first.
Yeah.
As a moment if you're applying. Okay.
So when you apply for 5, and you don't need to rank them. You would there's 5 choices, so you don't need to show us what order, and then you would put down your firm and insurance once you've got the offers back, because then you know what you're working with and what your options are.
Yep.
Oh, so the results come back like in August, you're saying? So what if we apply to like schools in the US and like we get acceptance from them and don't know whether to like commit to those schools? Like how does that work?
Yeah, we hear this one a lot, and it's something that we just, we understand that the US deadline's earlier, and you normally have to pay a deposit, but all we can say is if you do want to go to the UK, to kind of keep that process going, and it's a decision that you have to make. We know the timelines don't quite add up, but a lot of students would commit to a US institution and then later withdraw and go to the UK. There's not a perfect solution for that, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, we just had a question here, and we'll come back.
You talked about the SAT subject tests and AP exams. Are there any other standardized tests that you look at?
Most UK universities are looking at the APs. Some of us consider ACT and SAT, but it's usually APs because that's the closest equivalent that we have to a A-level. So that's what we're really looking at. But we can talk a little bit when we break out into what different institutions would be looking at.
We have a slide with our entry requirements in a minute as well, which will help.
Yeah.
With the UCAS form, you can put like 5 different schools. Can you put like 1 now and then 2 in November and then 2 in December? That doesn't
We encourage you to put 5 on at once, but if you haven't filled them, you can go back later and add choices on. The best thing is to do it would always be to do them all at the same time, but yeah, you can fill them in later and go back on.
Yep.
In terms of an engineering degree, an undergraduate engineering degree, you alluded to there's more like freedom in terms of study, and then you have to pick your specialty. But is a degree in engineering, if you pick a sub-discipline, more pointed in England? And how does the freedom work in with that?
Yeah, so I actually studied mechanical engineering, so I'll take this one. Yeah, so some universities do like a general engineering course where you can kind of do a year picking which subsection of engineering you want to go into and then specialise. But the vast majority you will apply to mechanical engineering, automotive engineering, aerospace engineering, chemical engineering, biomedical engineering, and you're going to specialise in that major solely. Now, I did mechanical engineering and I still had to do a few modules in things like materials and electrics because the engineering disciplines kind of cross over each other and need to understand each other. But yeah, it's probably more specialised than it would be here. And also, although a bachelor's is still 3 years, you can do what we call an integrated master's. So you can do a 4-year MEng, so Masters of an Engineering degree, which is very common in the UK. You can still do a bachelor's called a BEng, you can choose, it doesn't matter, but you can do this 4-year integrated master's course, and that means you can be a chartered engineer in the UK. It's kind of the gold standard of engineering qualification. So although I think our majors are more in-depth, and certainly for something like engineering, the first 2 years, all the classes are going to be virtually compulsory. And then the third and possibly the fourth year is where you get loads of options. That's where you're taking mechanical engineering and you're like, well, I want to go and work in the aerospace industry. So you take the classes that are in aerodynamics and light materials and things. So you get to tailor the degree within the discipline as well.
Great.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is just talk literally 2 minutes each, we won't bore you, about our institutions, not all 5, just the 2 that are here tonight. As we said, if you're really interested in one of the other ones, we can put you in contact, and then we'll break out and you can come and ask questions just one-on-one. So my name, as I said at the beginning, is Jasmine. I'm from Northumbria University, so it's the most northern university in the consortium, right up in the northeast in Newcastle upon Tyne. You may have heard of it, football reasons. Hopefully that's all. So a little bit about Newcastle. There's 2 universities, so it's very much a student city. We're often rated the #1 student city in the UK. I think that's because we have a really high population of students and we're fairly inexpensive. It's a medium-sized city, so if the thought of London or Manchester is a bit overwhelming, Newcastle it's got enough going on, but it's not, too overwhelming to some students. So as I mentioned, often voted the best student city, which we're really proud of. It is a very lively city and there is a lot going on, and it is an urban university, but at the same time you can get out to the coast. Cynthia came to the coast and had some fish and chips, which is about 20 minutes away on our metro. It's almost like our subway, so you can have a little bit more of a chill time there, and it's a 40-minute drive from Alnwick Castle, where Harry Potter was based as well, so we do some really good trips there. We have a Quidditch team, which is quite fun. Much to our pleasant surprise, last year we were named the #1 destination to visit in the world by Rough Guides, and that was due to our arts and cultures that we had going on in the city that year. We're very lucky for a medium-sized city in the UK. We have our own airport, so that's not a very common. It's about a 15-minute drive from campus, or you can get that subway service as well. It's really well connected. Unfortunately, you can't go straight out from New York, but you can go to Heathrow or Amsterdam and then fly in an hour. So it's a fantastic city, lots going on. A little bit about the institution. It's a large university, 34,000 students, just over 20% are international, so there's a lot going on, that busy atmosphere. We're very much known, we do the majority of majors, but we excel within art and design. We're often placed in the top 5 for most art and design programmes. We're also very well known for sport, so we're top 10 in varsity sport, and at the minute our men's football and men's rugby are second in the UK as well. So something that we sometimes have athletic scholarships for, and it's something we do very well in. But apart from that, we study the majority of different majors as well. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll move on to Sheffield.
Yeah, so hello again. So I am Amy from the University of Sheffield. So I think, did we have a map here? There we go. Yep, so Sheffield's kind of almost right in the middle of the UK, really kind of central. So the UK is really small. Anyone who's been there will know it's really easy to travel around. So from Newcastle to Sheffield, it's about an hour and a half. From Newcastle up to Edinburgh, it's 1 more hour. From Sheffield down to London, it's 2 hours, and that's on the train. So the other thing is it's very interconnected, really good public transport system. At either of our universities, you are never going to need a car. You're going to be able to walk everywhere, get public transport, and you'll never have a need for a car. So Sheffield is an old institution, fairly old, so we date back to the early 1800s. We had sort of a medical college and a technical college is kind of how we started, and then we've grown from there. So from 114 students back when we started to 28,000 now. So we have grown a lot. And about a quarter of those come from overseas, and that's from 150 different countries. So very multinational, very welcoming, very diverse. We are ranked in the world top 100 in the QS World Ranking, so we're ranked 75th in the world and 13th in the UK. And we are a member of the Russell Group. And the Russell Group is basically a club of 24 leading research-led institutions in the UK. We do cover a really wide variety of subjects, so we aren't just STEM and medicine, although that's where we started, and it's probably easier to tell you what we don't do, which is what Northumbria excel in particular, which is the arts and design courses, so we're a really good complement to each other. As mentioned, we have about 28,000 students, and we are an urban campus as well. I'm going to show you photos. I just want to mention a few other majors that we're also really highly ranked for that you might not have thought of. So archaeology is very popular with American students. You can handle human bones in the UK. It's a very different experience of archaeology. We have a very highly ranked philosophy course as well, and journalism is one of the highest ranked in the UK as well. We're an urban campus, so similar to Newcastle, we are a slightly bigger city than Newcastle, but again, a kind of manageable size. So the population's about 500,000 people. So it's not as big as your Manchester and London and Edinburgh. It's a little bit more manageable. And where our campus is situated is right in the edge of the city centre. So you can walk across campus in around 20 minutes, carry on walking for another 5 minutes, and you're in the city centre. So it's really convenient. And it's a really vibrant city. Similar to Newcastle, we have 2 universities, so lots of students, lots of independent kind of hipster cafes, shops, restaurants and things. And then the other really big draw, that's the theatre district. We have the largest theatre district outside of London. And the other big draw is that we're right on the edge of a national park. So if you're into hiking, mountain biking, climbing, these are really, really popular with our students. I'm a cyclist, so every Sunday I'm out cycling in the Peak District National Park. It's a really beautiful countryside. So it gives you a nice balance between having the city, but if you're into outdoors, being able to get outdoors as well. I always throw in a slightly weird Sheffield fact. So does anyone here watch Game of Thrones? Watched it when it was on? Yeah? Or Doctor Who? Was that more popular? Yeah? Okay, I'll go with the Doctor Who fact then. So the latest series of Doctor Who, with the female doctor, was written by an alumni of ours, and he loved his time in Sheffield. He did his master's there, so he set the series in Sheffield. So the tram system that you see and those lovely modern apartments where they live, that's all Sheffield city centre. But I want to reassure you that we don't have the giant alien spiders. They were made up. Although the academic who was in that episode was sort of meant to be an academic from our university, and that was kind of meant to be one of our labs. So a little random Sheffield fact. We touched on sort of entry requirements. So every college and every major will have slightly different entry requirements, okay? And that's why it should be easy to kind of match yourself to a major that's a good fit for you. So at Sheffield, we're looking for 3 APs or 3 SAT subject tests or a mixture of those, and we might ask for specific subjects. So for the engineering example, we would be looking for AP calculus, for example, and we're looking for 5s and 4s. I don't know if you want to go through yours or if you want me to. So for Northumbria, and we're looking for the high school diploma, but as Jasmine said, that's less important. We just want you to get a 3.0 and prove you finished your high school. We don't really care how you ranked or anything like that. It's more about those APs. For Northumbria, also looking for the high school diploma, plus one of either 2 APs, an SAT score or an ACT score. So each college will be slightly different, so you should be able to match yourself to a college that's a good fit for you. And that's why that rejection rate tends to be quite low, and your counsellors will be able to help with that as well. And that's our contact details. We have cards here as well and some materials. So unless anyone wants to ask a question now to the floor, yeah.
Just on the UCAS system, will they be able to see the requirements for each university? Where is there a master list?
UCAS only lists the A-level scores on their website, so it would be our individual institutions. So if you search on Sheffield, they're always in the United States page, and it will have the links there.
And if you're not sure, email one of us to check. Okay. Right, or we'll stand at the table and feel free to come and chat to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.